too. We all go through the veils of
Yeah.
forgetfulness when we take on this body, in this reality. So we really have to allow the voice of our own inner guide to help us to work through all those layers
Yeah.
and traumas. It's present for all of us, no matter what our soul blueprint is. But yeah, it's if you're listening to what I'm saying right now and you're feeling like, wow, I really felt my whole life like I didn't belong here, it's because you've come here to really impact this world in new and different ways.
Hmm.
And so that's really the higher destiny for a lot of these new beings that have taken on these incarnations and that are sprinkled all around the planet. I call them acupuncture points.
Yeah.
They're they're just transmitting these higher frequencies into the earth grids, into the earth body, and raising the frequency at
Mm.
this time. So their role is really important.
So, welcome once again to Raising the Consciousness of Humanity. I am super excited today because today's guest, Katrina Smith, is from New Zealand. And she actually I saw her on another podcast that was actually the Ethereal Edge podcast with Tara. And Katrina, that message that you delivered on that podcast, I thought was really great. And of course, I would always encourage people to go and check out that podcast too, as well as your YouTube channel. But I'm really glad that you're here today, and yeah, I'm super excited.
Me too. Thank you so much, Ron. It's such a pleasure and a joy to be here with you and to have this opportunity to explore the consciousness of humanity and everything we're going through right now as a collective. And it is a lot. I'm
Yes,
sure, I'm sure all the people in your community and the people who tune into your channel are feeling it in various different ways. And it's a process. And I think the more we speak into it and we share these insights and we co-create and collaborate, we bring a sense of illumination and clarity to, what we're all going through at this time. So it's
absolutely.
great to be here.
Well, I want to start off by reading your bio. It'll just take me a second. I got it right here in front of me. And yeah, so Katrina Smith, her specialty topics are ancestral and generational healing, healing from past trauma, spiritual DNA, and ascension. Of course, ascension is a very popular topic. Restoring humanity's creator power, discovering our divine potential and the deeper meaning for life. Those are really, really important topics for today. And Katrina is her background is as a registered nurse specializing in aged care and disability care. Katrina is experienced a profound shift in understanding her unique role in supporting humanity to heal. Her deepest passion is aligning all willing hearts with their highest potential, empowering every soul to reunite with their divine essence, spiritual purpose, and unique frequency. Her work focuses on resolving deep seated traumas, ancestral patterns, and limiting beliefs that obscure one's connection and embodied access to their most expansive life vision and golden life path. I love that golden life path. So yeah, let's start off by first learning a little bit about you, a little bit about like what brought you to this point of working with Ascension, working with helping people. You're obviously called. Yeah, I can sense that from having
Mm.
spoken to you before. But what in your life kind of woke you up? Were you always this way?
I think that I came in without a lot of veils. I was such a sensitive child. And from the very beginning, just being so highly empathic. And, you know, you don't know at that age, you're still trying to make sense of the world and reality. And, you know, I found myself really questioning the big picture a lot. You know, I have memories of actually being 7 or 8 years old and jumping the fence of our family home and then jumping on top of the garage and then sitting on the roof because I just needed a different viewpoint. I actually had to go after school, I'd sit on top of the roof of the house
Wow.
just to get a different perspective, you know. And I loved animals. I felt such a deep connection with nature, but I found the human social interaction very challenging.
Mm,
I felt very isolated. I didn't really know how to engage in that way. And it was, yeah, I was full of anxiety, to be really honest. My home and family was my safe space. But when I went out into the world, it was very jarring for me and very difficult to fit in because I was not that I really wanted to live in this way, but it was what it was. You know, I was just seeing things that other people weren't seeing.
mm,
I was feeling people's energies, you know, even from a young age at school, I was feeling I was feeling contradictions between what somebody was saying and how their energy was presenting to me. And so
sure.
for me, the world was really confusing in that sense. And I didn't know if I could trust in life.
Mm,
Um, so I got the sense, you know, quite early on that I was different. Um, it didn't kind of develop until sort of late teens, where I finished my education, my schooling, and I went into university and studied to be a registered nurse. And there was a calling there. You know,
sure.
I worked very hard to have the possibility to take any career path. At that time, I could have chosen to be a lawyer, could have chosen to be a doctor. I had those possibilities available because I had applied myself so much. But then there was this other higher divine calling that came in and said, "No, you're here to help people. You're here to take care of people in a different way."
Mm,
Right. And I know that lawyers and doctors help people, but it was just um, a different way of following that internal signal that I was getting. It was, you know, the voice of my own intuition. And so I
mm,
went down that path of nursing, and that was the biggest transformation that I went through because I actually went through my formal training in the hospitals, but then decided that that was not going to work for me to work in hospitals. It was just too full on. And already as an empathic soul, I just knew I wouldn't cope in that kind of environment, being indoors all day and just the density of it. So I actually started doing community nursing, and so that's where my biggest awakening happened because I was working one on one with people for years, years on
sure.
end. So people with chronic conditions,
Yeah.
whether that be physical, you know, people with mental health issues, people with significant and distressing trauma that they had been through, and you know, others as well that had, you know, intellectual and physical disabilities that required care for their every single daily need. And so that got me really questioning the divine order of reality because
Mm,
it didn't make sense to me why there was such a variation in suffering on this earth, why some people had it so bad, and, you know, why others seem to have such a dream ride.
sure.
And I wasn't satisfied with, you know, the answers I was getting. And so all I knew is that I was here to offer my compassion and to support people. And so I followed that, and it was an incredible spiritual awakening for me. Those
Yeah.
6 years that I was doing that, yeah,
Well, what you hit on, yeah, I would say there's a lot of people that what you just shared about, being a sensitive child, knowing that you're different. And I know that myself, I felt that too. But what you also shared was there seemed like to be a pathway there going into nursing or healing.
yeah,
And from that, you obviously probably got to a certain point where you feel like you're called to do this type of work, which is
Mhm.
helping people with emotional trauma, helping people with their ascension path. And
Yeah.
would you say that a lot of the people that are maybe what you using the term like starseeds or light workers or old souls, would you say a lot of them actually have somewhat of a challenging path in many ways?
I would say so, yes, absolutely, because we also have to acknowledge that these new incarnating souls are not necessarily new. It could be from the 60s, like the different waves of
Yep.
incarnating souls. Specific groupings have come through into the earth plane, into this 3D construct, and they've come in to specifically not fit in because
Yeah.
they're here to alter it from the inside out, and they're here to bring through a new perspective, to share their light, to offer their uniqueness, because they're the ones collectively that are, navigating this ascension process and shifting us in a new direction. And so it's really the undercurrent of the soul's journey of someone like a starseed or somebody who's an old soul, that they typically don't fit in, and they do typically have to go through a lot of their own initiations that are very difficult,
Mhm.
because that's all part of their own emancipation, their own self understanding, and really realizing who they truly are. Because even the star seeds get that amnesic wipeout when they come in, too. We all go through the veils of
Yeah.
forgetfulness when we take on this body, in this reality. So we really have to allow the voice of our own inner guide to help us to work through all those layers
Yeah.
and traumas. It's present for all of us, no matter what our soul blueprint is. But yeah, it's if you're listening to what I'm saying right now and you're feeling like, wow, I really felt my whole life like I didn't belong here, it's because you've come here to really impact this world in new and different ways.
Mhm.
And so that's really the higher destiny for a lot of these new beings that have taken on these incarnations and that are sprinkled all around the planet. I call them acupuncture points.
Yeah.
They're they're just transmitting these higher frequencies, into the earth grids, into the earth body, and raising the frequency, at
Mm.
this time. So their role is really important.
Yeah. And so you hit on a couple of things, acupuncture points. It makes sense that strategically, if you were to have a game plan called Rescue Planet Earth, you would have some sort of agreement to say, "Oh, I'm going to go here, you go there," because it just would make a lot of sense. And you touched on something, and I'm sure you probably read the book by Dolores Cannon, The Three Ways of Volunteers.
Oh, I haven't actually, but I do know about it, and I've
Okay,
seen
well,
some audio snippets. Yeah.
yeah. So what you spoke about, some of the souls coming in the 60s and some of them that I guess they're still coming in. Have you noticed a difference within each type, like of like the ones that are coming that came in first and the ones that are coming that are currently here or coming in now or whatever? Have you noticed a different energy with them?
I think yes. They do present differently. There are different kinds of qualities to their essence, to their, the wisdom or potentially where they're coming from. It's all about what the deeper intent is for their incarnation. There is a lot of different specific categorizations. Some are called indigo, some are called, star seeds. There are sort of different galactic energies that come through with them. But yeah, I feel like it's not pertaining necessarily to the time they come in. I think each soul has their unique mission
Yeah.
and their own very specific vibration and vision for what they're bringing through in this world. And again, that relates very, very closely to what they have to live through in this life and what they have to overcome so that they can get really in tune and in alignment with what they're here to offer to the world, and to really activate those gifts and
Yeah,
to activate those psychic markers and perceptions so they can really step into their fullest potential and yeah, really support with the greater ascension that is underway. So yeah, it's very interesting. It's something that I think you discover that on your own. You know, you start
yeah,
to get insights. You start to receive that inner guidance, and it starts to become clear for you of why you're really here.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know you do the coaching, and I did the one-on-one session with you, which I felt was beautiful, by the way. It helped me with clarity. I think I shared with you, I felt like up leveled, like
Yeah.
after that. And so I guess you probably deal with a lot of people, obviously, that come to you because maybe they have dealt with trauma, or maybe they're not really truly self-aware of trauma that they're holding on to, or uh, things that maybe, you know, fears or limiting beliefs, or things that have been ancestral that they don't realize that they actually are possessing or holding on to themselves, or it's holding them back. Um, how do you help somebody with something like that?
Yeah, well, it's about really just meeting that individual exactly where they're at. And so for somebody that they may be really struggling with something very physical, something very visceral, you know, like a health issue that's recurring and it doesn't seem to go away, you know, even taking all the advice of their medical professional and they're doing all the things, but it just doesn't seem to quite alleviate the discomfort and the suffering. And so it might be something like that, very physical. It might be something emotional, shame and guilt, and different kinds of patterns that might play out in their marriages or relationships. And for a lot of people that I'm seeing right now, it's just really that sense of confusion and feeling disconnected to their own purpose of why they're here.
Mm,
And that's very unsettling for a lot of people. And there's one part of them that knows that they're here for something tremendous. But there are all these other obscurations and self-doubt and, you know, disconnect where they just don't quite seem to know where they fit in this big picture of our collective experience. And so each person will present quite differently. And, you know, it's really just a full open spectrum of meeting someone exactly where they're at. And we speak about what's going on. And we start to, the way I see things energetically is through patterning.
mm,
So, you know, this may not just be a one off event, but it's, you know, this recurring reinforced patterning that seems to be with that person for many years or throughout their life. And it's just that sense of, I can't get on top of this, you know,
mm,
I want to be free from this kind of burden and
mm,
turmoil. And so we work through unpacking that. We really work through um, and this is all to do with the energetics of the space and the container. It's all very important to hold that person in a divine field of love and of light and of safety. And
mm,
that really starts to open and expand to really allow those deeper awarenesses to come through. And so we start to remove and dissolve all the layers there and really deep dive. We go very, very deep so that we can get beyond the ego identity and that sort of 3D construct of who we think we are by the name that we have and our job and all of that stuff.
sure.
And we start to excavate things a lot on on a much deeper level in those deeper domains of the unconscious self,
Mm,
because as the word unconscious depicts, you know, it's we're not conscious of it. We're not aware of these things that we're holding on to. You know, it's hidden in the shadows. So in that sense, we're illuminating those
mhm,
blind spots, if you will, you know, those hidden aspects that we're not quite able to see on ourselves. And which really connects to why we feel such a lack of fulfillment and why we, you know, why we feel depressed or anxious or our body is fatigued or we just don't feel full of vitality or we don't feel abundant
yeah.
and we're fighting with life, all these kinds of things. And it's such a beautiful, unique journey for each person. And so I'm always in awe of how it unfurls and how it reveals itself, and it is deeply healing. And I say to each person I work with that we're never just doing all this healing stuff for ourselves.
Mhm.
There's always such a massive ripple effect that it has on the greater field of energy,
Mm.
because when we resolve some kind of negative belief, that's changing us on the blueprint level. That's changing our DNA that responds to that energy. And, that we walk with that new sense of freedom, and that love and that light comes through us, and we get to share that with others.
Yeah.
And, we also get to resolve that from our ancestry as well.
Mm.
And so the healing energy doesn't just stay with you, it moves backwards and forwards and in all directions. And so it somewhat becomes a legacy in a way, our commitment and devotion to our own healing journey.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful to see that ripple effect.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. And Katrina, you shared something that I had felt all my life. I have a lot of much more clarity about my path, why I'm here, but I'm also 63 years old. And yet I know, and I'm sure a lot of people listening in right now, kind of the same thing is like sometimes you're like, well, why am I here? You did the job your parents or your high school guidance counselor told you were meant for, and you did it your best, and then you just got to a certain point and said, I don't even like going to work anymore, or I know I'm meant for something greater, and you feel in a way quite often stuck in life. And what you shared is sometimes something stirs up in that person. But I would say there's probably a lot of people that are trying to fit in to the societal norms or cultural norms or the conditioned world, but they probably do inherently feel a greater calling, but they may not know what it is.
Mm, yeah, and that causes, a deep sense of confusion as well. When you are on some level tapped into that inner voice, it's not completely drowned out. That can be very challenging because we put a lot of energy and effort into sustaining these career identities, and how we subscribe to certain kinds of belief structures. And our often for most people their job is what informs who they think they are. And
Yeah.
so that's a big one when you start to realize. And I think with the recent events in the last couple of years, with lots of um, changes to people's sort of careers and stepping down from certain jobs, and lots of things changing and shifting, that's caused us to really have to look at that face to face, and look it in the eye. And was that really meant for me? Was I holding on to something that I, on some level, believed was for me,
Yeah.
but on a deeper, on a soul level, like a soul spirit level, that was really not fulfilling, and it never really would have been if I had continued on that trajectory. So it requires such a level of self compassionate investigation to really meditate on it, to sit with it, to ask yourself, to go inward. We're never going to figure that out from any kind of outside input. It's always going to come from within. And so
Yes.
people might have their opinions or perspectives or advice, and that's all well and good, but it's got to really, to be authentic, it's really got to come from within you. And that's that guiding light that's always illuminating the way. And so that was the same for me. Although there was a very distinct and important link between what I used to do and as I was working in the healthcare industry, it it wasn't exactly what I was meant to do for the long run.
Yeah.
And so, but it also wasn't in vain. There was so much that I was learning, and I was evolving in such a way that it actually directly relates to what I do now. And so, you're never off the path. You're never too late. It's never a waste what you've done. It's always contributing perfectly for all the life lessons, all the skills, all the different kinds of qualities that are actually sort of streaming into, where you're headed in the higher destiny. But it's about really listening to yourself and not to the ego mind that, is usually focused on safety and security. And of course, that links in with finances and all that kind of thing,
It's true. Yeah.
which is hard. That's the tough one. That's the biggest one, I think, for
I
most
can't follow
people.
my dream. I have to quit my job. So yeah, yeah,
Yes, exactly. And that always keeps us bound to
yeah,
the lower timeline. Every time we stay stuck, we
yeah,
stay stagnant and we don't follow our dreams, and we just don't even bother because our ego's telling us that that's not viable, like it's just not going to work. It shuts it down before we've even
yes.
tried.
And if you're a people pleaser too, which I'm sure you find a lot of people that want that they're wanting to help others so badly that sometimes they get lost in the people pleasing. Right.
Mm, exactly. And then that again, people pleasing, that's another aspect of um, really overdoing it in terms of giving yourself your time, your resources. You're not fully being in your power, and
Mm,
so we're overcompensating for something when we're trying to please others or trying to control some kind of a outside opinion about us. And a lot of us do that. We avoid conflict. We don't want to ruffle any feathers. We just always want to say the right thing, but then we fall out of trust with ourselves because we're not being truly genuine and
yeah,
honest with who we really are, and being that version of us completely authentically without modifying our truth to fit in, or to try to make things easier for other people. And that's a big aspect of our human journey of just truly learning how to to honor who we really are, and to embody that fully. And
yeah,
I think we all go through that in some level. People pleasing is still part of the ego construct.
yeah,
So yeah, we're all being really catalyzed into witnessing those different programs that we have, and where that is coming from. Is that coming from our childhood? Was our voice really listened to? Were we really honored for our uniqueness, our talents, or was that all shut down and we had to create this fabricated version of us to fit in with family and culture and education and all of that?
yeah,
So for me, this whole ascension experience is about coming back to our authenticity.
yeah,
And that is such a beautiful pathway to self discovery. And I honestly believe that's the antidote to all mental health problems, to all physical health issues, because you're getting incongruence in harmony with who you truly are on an energetic blueprint level.
yeah,
So all the energies come in alignment, and there is no sickness on any physical, mental, emotional level,
yeah,
right? You're fulfilled. So we're all being sort of pushed in that direction right now. And it's not easy. It's a really challenging process, and it's full of ups and downs. It's
yeah,
definitely not a linear journey at all. So we need to have compassion, and to be gentle with ourselves right now.
yeah. And you're absolutely true about the the I had an interview with a doctor a while ago, and I think I asked him the question about what is like the number one quality about your healthiest patients or whatever. And his answer was they had a sense of purpose. They
Mm.
had a sense of passion or purpose or some sense of vitality towards life itself. They kind of knew what they were here for in a way because it wasn't that they didn't get sick, but he said they just recovered. They had a strong energy field. So what you shared, I think, is really important. And honestly, I think maybe you can explain a little bit more because I know you work with a lot of people, but even my wife years ago had a chronic back issue, and somebody talked to her one time and said, "You have a creative block." And then, of course, her thing was singing. She's now a singer. That's her business. That's her life. No, no longer a back issue. But how does a person know when they've got some sort of chronic pain, or maybe it's not manifesting as pain, maybe it's just manifesting as frustration? Uh, I mean, I think I would recommend them doing a one-on-one session with you, but what, I mean, what would you say would be a thing that you'd recommend somebody that's stuck in that situation?
Mm. Yeah, that's a really good question, actually. It just, yeah, we need to really understand that whatever's happening, whether it's, first of all, when we're in a state of discomfort, especially pain,
Mm,
the first thing that we tend to do is to resist it and run away from it. And so we'll
yeah.
do, anything we can to try to distract ourselves, to cover up the discomfort, because
Mhm,
part of the human conditioning is to try to sustain this sort of comfort zone experience. And so it can be very challenging when something like that happens. And yet there is a voice from our body. When we have a physical pain, sensation is the language of the body. It doesn't speak in English or Spanish. It speaks through sensation. And that is the language or the dialect of the soul. So it's so important to get in tune with your somatic body, your feeling body, and allow it to communicate with you without trying to numb it out or, take away the pain as quickly as possible. How can we lean into the pain, right? If that's a lower back issue, if that's whatever, any area of your body that you're experiencing that, and it may not be pain, it may be some kind of skin condition, or yeah, just some kind of emotion, and allow that voice to speak to you. Be open and receptive to its teaching, to its wisdom and its revelation, because there's something there that's knocking on your door, that's trying to um, reveal to you that the energies there are congested or constricted, right? Or there's something that we have yet to look into. And so it will get louder and louder and louder the closer we get to that threshold of finally releasing it. But
mm,
we will go through that intensification because it's fundamental to our awakening process that we come to terms with whatever trauma we're carrying, whatever density or negative beliefs or fears. Often as well with, interestingly, with sciatica, which I know that a lot of people experience,
mhm,
has a lot to do with our feelings of scarcity and feeling that we don't have the financial means and resources to sustain ourselves. And so
mm,
yeah, and and we experience that compression and the nerve pain, and there is a metaphysical reason as to why we experience everything on the physical level.
yeah,
So, and someone who worked in the healthcare industry, I know and recognize that it is important to address it multidimensionally.
yeah,
We don't need to get too extreme about things and totally disregard the physical perspective. There's different levels of intelligences, and it's important to honor it physically and to, get it checked out if you need to. But it's also important to inquire deeper into
yeah,
the energetics that might be presenting themselves there. So, and to see what comes through for you. It's unique to everybody. And so, like you said, once, and you saw that experience, right, with the taking on the singing
yeah.
as the higher timeline, that then the physical pain and discomfort totally dissipated,
It did. Yeah,
right? And so we're being pushed into the higher timeline, but it's not always blissful and enlightening. It's sometimes it's really uncomfortable,
yeah.
but that's what shifts us out of one state of being and into a new state of being,
Mm.
right? It's that cosmic pressure. We're being pressurized, and this is what all the ascension symptoms are all about.
Yeah, so you hit the nail on the head with that. It's awareness. And what you shared, of course, if anybody's got something, we wouldn't want any of our listeners to not necessarily go to the doctor, but doctors, from my experience, and this is not their fault, it's the system itself in a way, the way it's more for profit than it's for people,
Mm.
tend to go for some solution that's treating the effect, not necessarily understanding the underlying cause. and what you shared, and I remember hearing that before, like there's a metaphysical cause for a lot of these um, ailments and things that people, and I'm sure you said skin rashes and probably even digestion too.
Mm.
I would say maybe even baldness. I don't know. I think I inherited that one from my grandfather. But yeah, so I think our whole own body can give us clarity,
Mhm.
basically.
Yeah, and our body is a mapping system to our consciousness. It's this divine, intelligent expression of source energy. And so, if we can just listen to it and allow it to guide us and allow the temporal mental mind and the ego to sort of take a back seat, to still be there, but just, not be the dominant force of control, then we start to tap into this whole other realm of intelligence. And we have to understand as well that our body, its default state is always to heal. If we will allow it, if we will get out of our own way, it'll
I like
heal.
that. Yeah, the default
Mm.
is to heal.
And it has that intelligent, ancient, primordial memory. All
Yeah.
those memories are active and alive within us. And so if we can just get out of our own way and really work with the energies that are arising, and not judge it as bad or good, or that
Yeah.
something's wrong because I'm in pain, or because I'm in discomfort. And yeah, allow the revelation and the healing to happen. It'll do it on its own, literally.
Wow. I actually heard, I forget where it was, but I heard on one podcast that a doctor said that looking at the human body, we were meant to live 2 to 3 times what we are currently living.
Oh yes, yeah, minimum.
Minimum, yeah,
Yeah, aging is not a natural aspect of our human experience. That's also part of the fallen matrix and the different interferences that have happened to the template level of our being, to our genetics. So aging is also like the cellular death programs,
yeah,
the shortening of our telomeres, all the things that happen through the body are also in a way not natural, that are accelerating that process of degeneration. And so, by doing the deeper healing, we do prolong our lives, and we live in peace, and we live in fulfillment and harmony. We'd have better health outcomes.
yeah,
So it's all interwoven into this very beautiful fabric of our existence. And we can't just compartmentalize the physical body and then put the energy body over here. They overlap, it's all woven together. And it's this one miraculous tapestry of creation. Each person is a miraculous tapestry of creation. And so we really, and I think this is where medicine falls short, although there are some doctors that are, themselves awakening spiritually, which is amazing to see. And so they're offering that sort of new perspective. But usually in medicine, we're not really seeing the person as a spiritual being. We're just seeing them as a physical person, and so we're just addressing the symptoms, and there's a real disconnect from the soul that is inhabiting that body.
yeah,
And so do we look at their emotions? Do we look at their trauma? That this is what is so important, and is often completely overlooked.
yeah. And where you shared a little while ago was that, that being able to look at our own emotions, our emotional body, the things that are the pains that we have. It's almost like that quote, be still and know. But yet we're living in a world that is inundated with so much distractions, like
Mm.
from every social media app that's out there to the TV to the news, like everything that's going on in the world. And people, I think, on average, now some maybe do, but on average, most people don't have the quiet time. They don't have the self-reflection time. They don't have the time to be able to maybe go out into nature and just sit alone. But
Mm.
perhaps from what you're sharing, that's almost something it's essential to do.
Absolutely. And especially nature time. If you're really not spending, a good amount of time in nature every week or, regularly venturing out into the natural world, it really does register deeply the level of incoherence that's around us. And it's not just the electromagnetic fields, it's not just the incessant input of information coming in. There are so many different influences that we've got to deal with. We have to process that. So every time we watch a program or we watch something on social media, we need to integrate what we're seeing.
Yeah,
And so no wonder we have a big global problem with anxiety right now because our nervous systems are always on high alert and we're not really, it's like we're biting off way more than we can chew and we're not digesting anything.
yeah,
And so it's leaving us frazzled. And the way that that's affecting the pathways in the brain as well, it's just we're not being able to even hear that inner voice because it's a subtle voice. It's so drowned out by this inundation of
yeah,
incessant information that we're taking on that we can't even digest anyway, because it's just so scattered. You
yeah,
put the news on and it's so negative. There, it's just, it's so full of grief and it's so distressing. And we've normalized watching that, every night at
yeah,
6
yeah.
p.m., like,
I no
why?
longer have a TV.
Yeah, we don't either. I haven't had a TV, I think, for 15 years or 10 years.
Wow.
But we still have laptops, so you
Yeah,
can still do the same sort of thing. You can
yeah,
still be taking on a lot through your computer and through your phone. And this even goes as well for reading books. If you're somebody that's constantly taking on information from exterior means, you've got to process that.
yeah,
So I think we're a species right now that's very frazzled, that's struggling with a lot of, just a lot of internal conflict, internal distress, because, like you said, we don't have that quiet, contemplative time with ourselves or the spaciousness
mm,
to, to be able to listen to our own interior world. It's always about what's going on out there. And
yeah,
so what I find, as someone who loves nature, is to, like, when we go into nature, it's an instant reset.
mm,
Honestly, it's instantaneous. You 5 minutes there and you're in a forest and you're walking by a stream. There are such amazing changes that happen on a bioenergy level, on a cellular level, just by you being present in nature and yeah, being aware of your surroundings, right? And it's such a gift of the mother, of our beautiful elemental earth that's
yeah,
here to support us. So
yeah,
we need to get out of the house, we need to get off devices, and we need to really devote ourselves to that time in nature because that's where we come from,
yeah,
right?
yeah. That's
And
beautifully
it
said. Yeah,
and it brings us back home to ourselves.
yeah,
Right. And we all know how good that feels. You go away for a few days in the forest, or you're camping, or you do a hike in a mountain where you're just away from all of that noise. It feels so good. And this
yes,
is where we get a lot of those insights and we feel connected to ourselves on a deep level. So it's so significant that, we all really honor that right now to the best that we can. I know that it's difficult when we live in cities and, we just
yeah,
don't have access to that, but, we must really make a conscious effort to
yeah.
do so.
No, I agree with you. I mean, you're 100% right. I know with jobs that I've had where I've had to sit behind a desk or behind a computer, and
Yeah.
then after a while, and then with COVID, of course, then everybody started going connecting virtually. And living in Florida, I've always like I always look out windows. Like I've always like can't wait to get from the computer to get outdoors. But I've never had a moment where I've been outdoors wondering what would it be like to be back behind a desk behind a computer.
That's
My
actually
mind,
yeah,
yeah, I've never
good
daydreamed about
point.
that.
Me neither. No. You only just want to extend your time as long as you can in nature because it just feels so
Yeah,
familiar. It brings so much ease to your experience, to your body, to your breath. You'll notice your breathing changes straight away when
yeah,
you're in nature, and everything is regulated from your nervous system to your natural biorhythms. All of it comes back into harmony. So, imagine having a 10-day immersion in nature where you're just totally off devices, that would be amazing,
yeah.
right?
And Katrina, this is a question. This is a question that curious about your answer. You know, like the hundredth monkey effect or the critical mass, or where we get a certain percentage. I don't know. The world's population is what, 7 to 9 billion? I don't know. It's quite a few people. But if you took a certain percentage of that population and said, okay, shut off your TVs, go into nature and just sit and breathe and connect with nature, I wonder what effect it would have on the world at large.
Mm, a really positive effect, I'm sure, you know.
Yeah,
Sometimes I wonder if that will just happen for us with certain cosmological influences. We don't know. We're so dependent and reliant on technology, and we've somewhat taken it for granted.
yeah,
And we've taken it even a step further with AI and this dependency bond that we have because we're so time poor as as a human collective. So we're always running against the clock, which is so silly because if you really understand it, time inherently doesn't exist.
yep,
We create the construct of its meaning by what we apply to it, but it doesn't actually exist. So we're in a time matrix. We're always stressed and running against the
yeah,
clock. And we don't really understand, that once we have the opportunity to completely shift gears and change trajectories and to start to live in a more timeless way, because
hmm,
that's who we really are originally and authentically as divine incarnates. We're timeless. And that's why the aging piece as well, it doesn't make sense to me why we would only live 70 or 80 years, right? Why we have this untimely expiration of the body, why the disease patterns and degeneration. A lot of people feel, oh, this is normal. Oh, it's normal to be sick just because I'm 70. Like that for me is not normal,
yeah.
right? And they just accept all these kinds of things. So yeah, I often wonder as well with technology and how we've created almost a toxic relationship with technology. And I
Yeah.
and I see in a way we're doing it the same for with AI. And it just we have to understand that our intention behind everything is what's going to wield the outcome. We're conscious creators. So, we really need to become aware of our behaviors and attitudes towards things and our addictions to certain behaviors and certain things. And yeah, to know where we have those dependency bonds and start to become more sovereign. It's really important right now because we're in this age of technology, but technology also has a polarity timeline. It can
Yeah.
go in a positive way, it can go in a negative way. So we get to really choose as individuals and as a society what kind of world we want to live in.
So would that positive way or negative way? So with AI being such a rapid, it's when I was a kid, my mom just said, go out and play. We just played in the neighborhood. So we didn't have cell phones. We didn't have any of this.
Yeah.
And it's trickled in over time, but now it seems like it's a little more, technology is accelerating a little bit more. And I look at it's like some things you can say, well, it's a tool, like I guess like just like a hammer, you could build a house or you could kill somebody with a hammer. I mean, it's the
Yeah.
intention behind how you use it. Is that the same thing, would you say, with like AI, just being mindful of not giving our power over to it, and but noticing from a state of, I guess, from a state of love or something, to embody the consciousness to work uh, alongside of it. I'm because there's a lot of people in fear about AI. So I'd love to hear
Mm.
your answers about that. Yeah,
Well, it's obviously come up for a reason. Yeah, like you said with the hammer analogy, right? It can be used as a tool. It can serve a purpose for doing a certain task, and it can be really helpful.
yeah,
And it can also get you to the goal a lot quicker than
yeah,
having to hit something with your hand that doesn't have the
yeah,
same
yeah,
force, right? But then, as you said, it can be used as a weapon. It can be weaponized.
yeah.
And the way I see AI, it's really not black and white. There's a lot of black or white. There's a gray area. And we need to realize that we're in control of our reality. We are here to become conscious of everything we create and to not be sloppy and clumsy and unconscious creators, just creating without awareness. We need to understand everything that we do with intention, right? With intention of our heart and to do the right thing for us. And so I think AI in and of itself is, it's a tool it's come to our reality for
Mhm.
us to use it as a tool and to work with it with respect
Mhm.
for its intelligence and its efficiency. And there's no problem in that, right? Because for me, the real issue with AI is if we use it to create for us. That for me does not sit well because then AI is becoming the new intermediary, the new um, intermediary between us and our own source. Because
Mhm.
our source is creation. We are creator beings and we're all artists. I know most of us think that we're not. We've been living on a planet very creatively oppressed. And yet what I see, especially with, I don't know if you've seen the generative AI imaging and images
Yes.
that they come
Yeah.
up and they make the image for you.
Yeah.
That kind of, that for me really is disconnecting us from
Yeah.
our own creative spirit. Because if you're an artist, right, that's fundamentally who you are on a soul level, which we all are,
Yeah.
and you're outsourcing all of your creations to something else, some other intelligence to do it for you. We're actually disempowering ourselves, and we're losing touch with our own internal essence
Yeah.
as creator souls. So for me, I think using it as a tool, using it with discernment, using it with respect, not creating that toxic bonding and dependency. Everything we have to treat everything with respect, even if we believe it's not sentient, right? So respecting that intelligence and using it for good,
Yeah.
right? Not being lazy and allowing it to completely take over.
So I just
Mhm.
thought of something, and then yeah. So naturally, I would say, and I'm sure you probably feel the same way, that we have these innate gifts, whether you call them our clairs or just our sense of intuition. Uh, we have, I think, when we're in a state of flow, like you mentioned, an artist or musician, or like you said, we're all creative. Like when we're in a state of flow, we're virtually downloading and channeling and receiving information. A writer or a poet. I just recently listened to somebody who did spoken word art, and when just to see him creating, and yet with AI being an information source, somebody could easily find that becomes a habitual go-to thing instead of tapping into their divine essence of infinite wisdom that's part of their soul. So yeah,
Exactly. Exactly. So it might be a shortcut, but at the end of the day, we've got to really scan, the whole timeline here. Is this really serving us or is it actually not serving us? And yeah, to tap into yourself, your own wisdom, your own guidance. And, again, extremism never works well. So there's no point being on one side of the fence or the other in an extreme position,
yeah,
right? But it's important to consider all possibilities and understand what your intention is. Because if you're going on ChatGPT to find the answer for everything, or you're using generative imaging for everything that you share in your spiritual business or something like this, are you telling yourself that you don't trust yourself to have your own answers or your own creative expression?
Yeah.
And so that's where it's at. I think people have really felt quite a separation from their own inner wisdom, from their own inner creativity, and so they've felt empty in a way, and that has led them to AI to sort of make things easier and to give them the answer.
You hit the nail on the head with that because I would say most people who are creative, when are they in their best like state of flow or whatever you would call it, that their passion is when they're creating. But if you
Mhm.
took that away from them, and not to use the word being a slave of something, but basically, if you enough times you become so dependent on it, then you energetically probably don't experience that same state of joy and happiness and bliss because your creativeness is what a unique gift that you've been brought into the life into this life. You're not
Yeah.
using it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I call it like the new intermediary, right?
Yeah,
Because then it becomes a block or a glass ceiling between you and your own higher self. So it's really important to distinguish your relationship with these kinds of technologies and how you're consuming, how you're using that, and if it really is supporting you and supporting your higher potential and purpose, or is it actually stripping that away?
yeah,
So it's really like at a time where it's amplifying so much and we see technology everywhere, it's important to get clear on that so it doesn't get the better of us and then it doesn't start controlling us. So it's a very there's a lot of gray area. It's a complex topic. It's everyone's going to have their own perspective, but all I know is that we're here as creators, and whether you call it, a musician, someone who makes beautiful gardens, or a cook, or whatever, it's still artistry. We're
yeah,
still creating from that divine source within us that we carry all at all times.
yeah,
Right. And so when we just um, plug into that source, we're flowing with that stream of consciousness energy, and it feels so good, and it's so empowering. And so that's at the end of the day, that's what this is all about. All the work I do and everything that I'm offering to support people is about helping them to get back in touch with
yeah,
that divine essence, and to work through the obscurations, to work through the self-doubt, the fears, the traumas, whatever is creating that block, and not enabling them to fully feel or really understand their own passions,
yeah,
right? Because that's where it's at right now. We've got to follow what lights us up the most,
yeah,
and to devote ourselves to that, to pour our life force into our greatest passions and excitement, what makes us feel good, and what makes us feel like we're contributing to
yeah,
this process of new earth and heaven on earth, and the ascension. Are we bringing more joy and love through our embodied experience? These are what, the questions we should be asking ourselves right now.
yeah. Yeah, you're right. As individuals start to rise up in their divine mission or purpose or sacred creative expression, they vibrate at a higher level, and,
Yeah.
and that changes the world.
Hmm. Absolutely. And imagine hundreds of thousands of people doing that all simultaneously. Those acupuncture points are going to be transmitting some very, very high frequencies and creating a morphogenetic field where we suddenly, like that tipping point or that chain reaction, it
Yeah,
just starts to naturally shift trajectories, because it doesn't require 7 or 8 billion souls to have an awakening. It only needs to be a certain amount to to have that greater impact, because love and harmony is so much stronger than fear and doubt.
yeah,
So imagine that
Yeah.
with just a smaller amount of us committed to our ascension, committed to our authenticity, eradicating our fears and getting in alignment with our passions and our purpose. It's an unstoppable force.
Yeah.
And so that's why it's so exciting to be here right now on the earth. And yeah, it's a beautiful time to be alive. As much as we're sold the narrative of how dark everything is, how there's so much devastation on this earth, there's equally an incredible and increasing amount of light. So
Yeah.
it's all here, and we get to choose what we want to create with, because we're creator souls, we're creator beings in a human body. And I believe that we're all artists, so we get to express that in whatever way feels most enjoyable to us and most fulfilling.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just about discovering what that could be and aligning with it, and following that without
Mhm.
fear and without attachment to any kind of outcome. Just be true to yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Beautifully said, Katrina. That's yeah. Your whole I love speaking with you, number one. It's like that voice of hope too, hope for humanity. And I know you have something you had sent to me that you have a special to offer. And
Mhm.
so if anybody wants to reach out to you, how do they find you? And also, if you could share a little bit about that offering that you have.
Yeah, I'd love to. Thank you for the opportunity to share that as well. So you can find me on my website, which is www.katrinasmith.me. So it's just my full name.me. And once you're on the website, there'll be links to everything else. So YouTube, social media, all of that.
Nice.
And I'm also offering an embodiment package at the moment called Temple of Light. And so this is something that I've put together that
Mhm.
is a combination of embodiment audio practices, so meditations, video teachings as well, and also a one-on-one private session with myself. And the main essence of Temple of Light is really how to get in alignment and in embodiment of your higher self, with your higher self. So how can you accelerate that timeline? How can you awaken your own gifts, your higher purpose, your uniqueness,
Mhm.
and really understand your blueprint and why you're here as a soul at this time? And so that's why I've synthesized it into this beautiful package where we have audio activation, so you can go on that journey. You can um, listen to these meditations and have an experience. And then you have the video components where you can really explore that deeper understanding of ascension and your higher self. What does that even mean? What is a higher self? How do I how do I connect to that version of me? And just really unpacking and illuminating spiritual DNA, what's going on at this time of awakening. And then the one on one session is an integration experience. So it's really about supporting you in not just activating the higher self timeline, but helping you to embody it and to ground it and to integrate it. So we do that together on a one on one call. And so I'm offering that now for 177, and you have lifetime access to everything there as well.
Nice. Beautiful.
Mhm.
Well, thank you so much, Katrina. Any last parting words for the audience?
Mm. Yeah, what's coming through right now is just really self trust, actually. That's the words that I'm hearing. And I'm getting that sense that for so long we've been sort of working against ourselves because of the way that we've thought we should do things due to our programming and our conditioning and all of that. But it's a time right now where we need to learn to trust ourselves, where we need to allow ourselves to be guided from within instead of influenced by external means and um, perspectives on the outside. Okay. And that really means like know thyself, know who I am, trust the inner voice, not the voice of the ego, but the voice of the soul that speaks in a very graceful and subtle way. And it's very easy to not hear it. And so let's quieten things down. Let's get rid of the distractions and the noise and looking for outside answers. And let's go within and keep cultivating that trust. So, you really come into harmony with that inner directive, and that will always guide you faithfully. That will illuminate that golden life path all the way ahead, and you'll never go wrong. So trust yourself, trust your mission, trust the purity of your heart, and allow the guidance to come from within you.
Trust the purity of your heart. I love it. Thank you so much, Katrina. I'm hoping that we can get on again and do another episode, but I'm really happy that you were able to share your wisdom with us today.
Thank you, Ron. It's such a joy, and it's always so lovely to talk to you. And thank you for inviting me on your amazing show. And I just, yeah, hope that it resonates with all those who have tuned in today and has been supportive in some way or inspiring. And yeah, just sending many blessings to each and every person, and sending blessings to you as well. Thank you for all that you do.
Thank you, Katrina. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye.